All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Initial NBA Show. What's up? I am CJ. Um, let's talk about some in-season tournament. But first, just a quick programming note, whatever. I will start releasing these episodes a little bit quicker. However, they will be a lot shorter than normal. So previously, I'd been releasing every 2 weeks, with three or four, two to four different like segments on stuff. I think going forward, I'm just gonna release each segment as their own individual episode. That way, episodes get out faster, things are a little more current, and you'll get things, kind of at a faster cadence than every 2 weeks. Where, after 2 weeks, it may not be worth talking about something. So yeah, just a quick programming note. This will be a shorter episode, but we're gonna talk about the in-season tournament group stage. So I guess let's get into it. All right. So, the in-season tournament. We are done with the group stage. Right now it's Friday, November 30th, or sorry, Thursday, November 30th. Um, we finished the group stage up earlier this week. Next week we head to the knockout rounds. So let's go on. This I feel this is a pretty good time to have a check-in about the in-season tournament. Where we're at, who's advancing, who won tiebreakers and stuff. Talk about the what's good, what's bad, what could be adjusted for the in-season tournament in the future, and then give a little picks and previews of the knockout round. So I guess just as a quick recap, obviously it's 8 teams went through to the knockout rounds. The winner of Group A in the East, you had the Indiana Pacers. They went 4-0 in group play. Winner in East Group B, Milwaukee Bucks, again 4-0 in group play. And then winner of Group C was the Boston Celtics. They went 3-1 in group play. The East wildcard ended up being the New York Knicks. So that's a slight surprise there, I think. Along with, I guess, Indiana as well, but they kind of surprised everyone this year. They've been playing really good offensive basketball, at least. But yeah, East with the wildcard, the Knicks, they were 3-1. They ended up winning based on the point differential tiebreaker over the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Orlando Magic, and Brooklyn Nets. So yeah, I mean the point differential tiebreaker ended up being a thing with the wild cards, and we will talk a little bit about that. In the West, we got the winner of West Group A. We have the Lakers 4-0. Winner of West Group B, the New Orleans Pelicans at 3-1. West Group C, Sacramento Kings at 4-0. And then the West wild card was the Phoenix Suns. They went 3-1. And then they won the point differential tiebreaker over the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that's a recap of who's moving on. I guess let's talk about kind of the group stage and how I thought it, what I thought about it. Overall, huge success. I think this kind of did exactly what the NBA wanted it to do. There's a couple small gripes I have. We'll talk about those, but overall, I think the in-season tournament did exactly what it was supposed to do. Made games in November competitive, which for a lot of NBA fans, they are like, hey, wake me up after the All-Star break type of attitude. So these games, even though they were part of the regular season still, and count towards regular season records, them being part of this in-season tournament definitely gave them kind of just a little bit more juice. Not as much as this playoff game in general, but there was just guys were playing just a little bit harder. Coaches were going with their starters a little bit longer in blowouts. They were probably shortening rotations just a tad. You could tell the games were different. And that's a great thing. I think it's a great thing for the NBA. That was honestly the whole point, right? Because when we talk about the NBA season, there's a lot of the regular season doesn't matter. Let's just get to the playoffs. No one pays attention before Christmas or whatever. So it accomplished exactly what it was set out to do. The one thing that I think helped attribute to that was that point differential tiebreaker. Teams were kind of incentivized to play with a little more strategy than they normally would for your run-of-the-mill regular season game, and really not let off the gas like they normally would. You can ask the Chicago Bulls about that. They were on the receiving end of a couple of these cases where teams were blowing them out and trying to kind of pad their point differential for the opportunity to get to the next round. As a side note, I guess let's just touch on the point differential thing. the tiebreaker right now. I don't mind it. I think it's a fine way to create, to break ties. There's going to be ties when you're only playing 4 games in a group stage. That's just inevitable, as we saw with the East and West wildcards both coming down to that tiebreaker. And I know there were some players, especially in coaches, and I'm sure there are a bunch of older fans that were kind of talking about how this point differential tiebreaker caused the code to be broken. I put code in quotes. Every sport has these, right? These unwritten rules that you're supposed to follow, and if you don't follow them, then no one likes you, and you're insulting the game, basically. All that stuff's dumb. All right, in every sport, all of those unwritten rules, the code, whatever you want to call it, all of it's stupid. The only ones I'm in favor for are the ones that are more injury related, right? Like, hey, maybe don't try to take out this guy's knees. Don't take out the tight end's knees in the NFL. Those are fine. But in general, like running up the score in an NBA game, which is what the tiebreaker caused, flipping a bat after you hit a home run in baseball, things like that, I love it. Just keep doing it. I love guys that break the code, that are playing the sport how I think it's meant to be played. Play your hardest, 110%. Enjoy your wins. Enjoy your successes every step of the way. But yeah, I have zero problem with teams running up the scores, both with the tiebreaker and just in general. Like, honestly, these guys are professional athletes. And I should note, this is professional sports. When we're talking about amateur sports, I think I'm more accepting of, some code or some unwritten rules. But all of these guys are getting paid a bunch of money to play a game. And to me, it's like, hey, if you don't want a team to run the score up on you, well, you're literally getting paid to prevent that. So why don't you do your job, type of thing. So yeah, I have no problem with the tiebreaker, because I have zero problem with teams running up scores when they're blowing a team out. That team being blown out should play better. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to. And I know, I think I've only seen one athlete that has come out and been like, yeah, I'm cool with teams, running up the score and the point differential thing. And that was Devin Booker. And I think that's why I really like Devin Booker, is like, cause I think he has the same attitude where, hey, if I'm going to prevent you from running up the score because I'm going to play my ass off and I'm super competitive, rather than some unwritten rule that's going to prevent me from getting blown out, So yeah, I just wanted to mention that, because I think that's, of all the things in this in-season tournament, that's been one of the bigger talking points. But yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with teams running up the score to pad their tiebreaker. I'm fine with them doing it in the regular season just to give themselves some more confidence or whatever it is. So that's all I got to say about that. So the other thing that this, going back to what this in-season tournament did well, we've already mentioned that it helped to give purpose to the early regular season, at least more purpose. Obviously it matters because it counts towards the standings, right? But it gave them kind of that, a little more juice, a little bit more, hey, let's try to win this so we can win that money at the end, and also the bragging rights type of thing. But the other good thing it did is it kind of gave some of these contender teams a bigger stage to play in, especially as we go into like these knockout rounds. I think that's going to be huge. Of the teams that are left, you got the Lakers, Bucks, Celtics, Suns. They're all teams that in April and May, we're expecting them to be in the hunt, right? Any of these teams losing in the first round is a huge disappointment. Even some of these teams, the Celtics and Bucks especially, if either of those teams lose in the second round, if that's not your Eastern Conference Finals, that's a failure for both of those teams. However, there are other teams like the Pacers and the Pelicans where we don't expect either of those teams to really be in the hunt for a title, right? Yeah, maybe sure they make the playoffs, but at best they're first round exits, losing in probably 5. So I think that's great for the league when you have these teams that are not part of your traditional contenders, playing in big games that matter for something. And a lot of these teams are also young. So here's there are a couple reasons why I think this is good. Like, it gives some of these younger teams at least a little bit, just a little bit. Obviously, it's not the playoffs, but it gives them a little taste of a playoff atmosphere, which is kind of what I'm expecting for the knockout rounds. It's not going to be as intense as a playoff game, but it's going to be more intense than a regular season game, or even a regular season game against like a rival or whatever. So I think for younger teams, I think that's huge. Again, looking at the Pacers especially, they have this incredible, future All NBA point guard Tyrese Halliburton, who is awesome. Given guys like that little taste of kind of what a big game playoff atmosphere feels like in the NBA, it's huge. It also gives some of these kind of less popular non-contender teams some face time to like more casual fans. If a team is less popular, right? The national media doesn't talk to them. If you are, let's just say the Indiana Pacers. I'm just using them as an example because they're the one that made it to the knockout rounds. If you're, the Indiana Pacers, a guy in, South Texas or in Los Angeles or in Miami, they don't pay attention to the Pacers in all likelihood, right? Because they're a fan of a big market. They live in a big market. And the, teams like the Lakers and the Celtics and the 76ers, no matter how bad they are kind of in the forefront of the NBA zeitgeist, whether it be for good or bad reasons, right? So I think it's good to give these less popular and the non-contender teams, again, like the Pacers, this face time, the more casual fan base. Obviously, if a team is a contender, they're going to be kind of higher up the list in the national media. Denver Nuggets, Milwaukee Bucks, these are small markets. When those teams aren't good, no one nationally or the casual fan who isn't a fan of those teams doesn't really care about them. But when those teams become contenders, they obviously matter. So I think this is good for these less popular, like kind of smaller market non-contender teams to kind of implant themselves a little bit in more casual fans. Then the other thing is, again, it just gives teams something to play for, especially those that aren't expecting much out of the season, right? The Pacers, perfect example. They are a team going into the season that a lot of people, myself included, had them kind of in that playoff, like the play-in level in the East is kind of where they'll finish. So it's still a rebuilding year, right? They're still figuring out who of their young talent is worth keeping the long haul. Get these young guys better, things like that. So giving those types of teams something to play for, I think it's huge. So yeah, like I said, Indiana Pacers are like the perfect example why the in-season tournament is great for the NBA. They're a young team. They have a rising superstar. They're a team that isn't expecting to even make the postseason, or if they do make it, they're a first round exit in all likelihood. It gives them a playoff type atmosphere for these knockout round game, for at least one knockout round game, which again for a young team super is invaluable. And then it's also one of those teams that doesn't have that national fan base, right? If the Lakers are bad, the 76ers are bad, if the Celtics are bad, national media, non core fans of that team are still talking about them. However, the Pacers, they're part of that other, like 75% of teams that don't have that kind of national reach, right? So I think it's good for that case too. So we talked about all the good things, and I think they're huge benefits. This was a home run win by the NBA. All the goods greatly outweigh any of the bads. There are a couple things that we can improve though. So let's talk about those. The first one, and it's probably the biggest one, and if being this is the biggest one, it's good. That's a great thing that this is the biggest issue I had. The courts, man. Choose an adjective, man. God awful, abysmal, disgusting, atrocious, abominations, terrible, just vomit inducing, whatever. Most of them were really bad. Most of them looked awful. Especially those that were like the predominantly red or the predominantly like royal navy blue. They all looked terrible. It was hard to watch on TV. You're like, am I staring into the sun? They were bad. They were a bad move. They also, I know there were some issues with some of them with causing injuries, just because they were slick or whatever. So The courts sucked for the most part. There were a couple that were good. Like Milwaukee's was good, Sacramento's was good. I think Atlanta's was pretty good. But a good majority of them, I'd say at least 20 of the 30 were terrible. Um, you know, I like the idea. I do love the idea of having some obvious way that signifies that this game is something different. When it comes to the in-season tournament games. So it's not a bad idea at its base. I think it was just very poorly executed. Almost feels like it was like slapped together at the last second, which it kind of felt like it was, because I think we found it like less than a week before the in-season tournament started that they'd be using these courts. So it's definitely possible that it was like kind of a slap together thing. But I mean, I think you can still do something like this where you change up the court and make it completely obvious that this isn't just a normal regular season game. But you don't have to go to the extremes of making it super blue or deep red or whatever it is. I think in general, if we're talking aesthetics, like I think something a lot more tame makes more sense for kind of the majority of the court, right? Like I think the paint is different, and I think the center of the court, how they had like kind of that 3-layer sandwich thing, right? Where you had for the Nuggets you had the blue and then the yellow, which was the paint, and going up the middle of the court, and then you had the blue at the bottom. I don't mind having that centerpiece being some wacky obnoxious color. Like the paint under the basket's already in a lot of cases kind of something weird or wacky, but I think the outside pieces, rather than doing the blue, the red, whatever, do something a little bit more muted. I think it looks better. Light silver, light gray, tan, peach, more wood grain colors. Like if you were to get new floors in your house, right, choose a color like that. No one's gonna put in a royal blue wood floor in their house. I think if you choose from kind of that type of, what colors I'm talking about, like that type of shade of something more neutral for the majority of the court, and then just have splashes of color or whatever, even if it's that entire strip down the from basket to basket. I think that would look way better. It would be much more consumable on TV. So yeah, I think that's how you fix that. I think it's an easy fix. I love the idea of having the court be different. It was just poorly executed. The other thing with the courts is I love the alternate logos. I think that's an awesome idea. The alternate logo, even with the trophy in the back, I think is again a way. It was a good idea to do that, because it does make the courts feel different. Even if you just did that and didn't do the wild colors and whatever for the floor, I think that would probably be enough. So I'm 100% in favor of keeping that portion around. As long as, and there is a little bit of an if here, as long as the logo is good. Because all the teams did kind of alternate logo things. Some of them were great. I love the Kings one was great. I love the kind of throwback, the old school Kings logo. Though some of them were bad. The Denver Nuggets one was bad, where it's just like 5280. It's like, yes, we live at above sea level. I understand. It already is on the normal court. There's altitude signs all over the place. If you've ever been to a Nuggets game, they have the cheerleaders or whatever in Rocky with giant signs going around the court that have flashing red lights and yellow like signs that are like warning altitude or whatever, and they just play like a video and shit. We know the Nuggets are at 5,280 feet. It's a huge advantage. It's starting to get a little ridiculous how much they are embracing that. So I'm not a huge fan of 5280 as the Nuggets like alternate logo they had at center court for the in-season tournament. Also didn't like Indies at all, the Comic Sans, whatever the hell that was. So yeah, I like the alternate logo idea. I like having a little trophy in the back. I like the strip of color from basket to basket. But I love the idea of just different courts in general. But hey, let's pull it back just a tad with the wackiness. All right, that's a lot on NBA courts. I didn't think I'd cover. I thought that'd be like a 30-second thing. The next piece, the next tweak I would make, and this is a more difficult one, which may not be entirely possible. It actually is not possible given the current group structure. But I would make the last round of games in the group stage, have any games that have a tiebreaker advancement implications at the very least, have them all start at the same time. Um, the reason I say this is if you guys ever watch the World Cup, which I'm a decent soccer fan every once in a while, especially World Cup time. That's when I really dive into soccer. Um, but if you ever watch the World Cup, in the last game of the group stage, so if you're not familiar, World Cup, they split teams up into groups of four. Each team in the group, similar to the NBA tournament, will play each other once. In that last set of games, so the third game for each team, for the group stage, when that's kind of when it's determined, for a majority of when teams are moving on, they have those games start at the same time. So if you've, USA, Germany, South Korea, Japan, these are just random teams I'm choosing, all in the same group, and it's USA, Germany is the last game, South Korea, Japan is the last game. Those two games will start at the exact same time. So that way, there is no advantage of a team knowing, oh, hey, we need to win this game in order to advance, or hey, we need to win by X number of goals in order to advance, or hey, that team lost, we're already through, we don't even need to try. I like when there's kind of a chaos during these games that they don't really know what they need. So they're kind of forced to kind of play their hardest, right? So, and I think that's what the World Cup does well is there's, a 10-15 minute span at the end of these soccer games in the group stage of the World Cup where, you know, you're watching both and, by the second, the pendulum is swinging between who's going to advance based on, X team just scores, so that means Y team needs to score another goal in order to keep the tiebreaker or whatever. I think that is a much more fun way if you're going to do kind of these round robin group stage type of things. And again, it's going to be kind of difficult to do given that right now these are in groups of five, right? So if you have five teams, you could do the math. You can't have all five of them playing each other at once. They, also with the NBA being 30 teams, you couldn't even necessarily split the groups up more evenly to make that possible, right? So it at least until expansion. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you could probably do 8 groups of 4, and have the intended the result that I would like to see. But like going into the Warriors Kings game on Tuesday night, it was already known that the Warriors needed to win by 12 to advance. Otherwise the Kings would advance, and obviously with them hosting, if they ended up beating the Warriors, but them actually going to New Orleans to play in the knockout rounds if they lost by less than 12, right? I think that would have been just a little more fun if there was the other game going on at the same time, and in real time you were seeing this. Oh, at this second this team's advancing. At this second this team's advancing. At this second it's being hosted by New Orleans. At this second, it's being hosted by the Kings. So again, it would be difficult, right? Actually impossible right now because there's 30 teams and not 32. It doesn't break cleanly into groups of 4. But assuming expansion, throw it into groups of 4. And I think it would be more fun. Schedule wise, it would be kind of more of a pain in the ass to figure out. To essentially figure out the schedule on the fly. Especially if you don't want all 32 teams, playing on the exact same day, or whatever. So, but regardless, I enjoy that 10 to 15 minute, time frame of chaos you can get with the World Cup, and I'm hoping they kind of think about that going forward for the in-season tournament because I think that'd be super fun. The other thing I would change is the last one. This one's a much smaller one, and I think they're probably never going to do this, but I do think it'd be just more fun in general. Randomize the groups a little bit more. The NBA tried to make them balanced groups. I think they used last season's standings to kind of determine, who's in each group, right? You take, the top 3 teams in the West, put them in separate groups, take the next, 3 teams in the West, divvy them out between the groups. So you get, kind of all the groups are relatively, balanced between them. However, I think it'd be fun. I'm a Nuggets fan. I'm rooting against the West teams all the time when it comes to the playoff race. I don't know how many times I've watched the Trailblazers or the Clippers or the Thunder or whatever because I play the Nuggets all the time. I would love to see some interconference groups, like, make it so that instead of it being divided East versus West, just, divvy up groups just league wide. I would love to have the Nuggets be in a group with let's just say Cleveland, and then throw in the Knicks and whatever. Like I think they could do a more fun job about kind of randomizing the groups and not making it as like boilerplate, like, oh, here's the West. I guess we're gonna play, these four teams every single time. And then a more extreme version of this, I'm down to just get rid of any kind of group balancing at all. Just throw all 32 teams in a bucket, pick them out, and randomly assign them. I think that'd be more fun. Eventually you end up with a complete group of death, right? Like, imagine a group of Boston, Milwaukee, Phoenix, Denver, Minnesota right now. That would be fun. I'm down for that. Maybe a group right now of Indiana, OKC, Orlando, Houston, and then whatever another young up and coming team was. I threw down New Orleans here. I don't know who else you could really pick there. Yeah, like I think it'd be fun if every year the groups kind of were a little wacky, a little random. One year, a powerhouse like the Celtics ends up in a group with the Spurs, Pistons, Trailblazers, and the Grizzlies or whatever. Like, I'm open to doing some wacky stuff like that. I think it'd be fun. So that's all I got on kind of the group stage in the season tournament so far. Overall, fantastic success. It was great. Obviously there's things I would tweak, but it's otherwise awesome. And I think it was, if it wasn't a home run, it was at least a triple, right? I think it was a really good move by the NBA to do this. Let's talk about the knockout round and get some picks. So first up in the West, we have the number one Lakers, the number one seed in the West, for the in-season tournament, not for real life. And then against the number 4 Suns, so that game would be in LA. That game's on Tuesday. So there's going to be no Beal for Phoenix due to a back strain. They said he's going to be out for reevaluated in a couple weeks. I think that came out like a week ago. But I think I'm still going to take Phoenix. Kevin Durant's been awesome all year. Booker's, for the most part, been awesome. I think he had one stinker game. I think it was last night, actually. But outside of that game, he's been awesome. LeBron has been good. He's, doing LeBron stuff at age 39, which is still incredible and blows my mind. But he's still kind of, he does pick his spots a little bit. His defense has slipped just a tad, just a little bit, compared to what we're kind of more used to. And then, Anthony Davis disappears a lot. It's insane for how talented he is, how often he disappears. This essentially is kind of a pseudo playoff game, right? Single elimination knockout. So it feels like, I like Phoenix to kind of steal one in LA, on the backs of KD and Booker. So that's my pick for that one. Let's go Suns, I guess. Next up, number 2 Kings versus number 3 Pelicans. That is in Sacramento on Monday. I'm going to go Kings. They're just straight up a better team. The game is in Sacramento, which, is a pretty big home court advantage for them. That place gets rowdy. And then I don't trust Zion. He's had a pretty good season. But I was looking at stats and it kind of, like, I understand he's only 6'6", but he's a power forward averaging like less than 6 rebounds a game. Which seems low to me, especially because his career average is up around like 7.5. And I know he's had some I don't want to call him questionable. He's had some comments about like his role in the offense and stuff a couple weeks ago. That has me just a teensy bit concerned. But yeah, I'm gonna take the Kings over the Pelicans in that knockout round game. In the East, and I'll go all the way through to the championship. So trust me, we're picking champions in this too. In the East, we have the Bucks at number 1 seed versus number 4 seed Knicks. That's on Tuesday. I'm going to take the Bucks. It's in Milwaukee. The Bucks are just way better than the Knicks. The Knicks aren't going to be able to stop the Giannis Lillard thing. I know, Milwaukee's defense hasn't been as good this year. It's gotten better over the last couple of weeks for sure. But the Knicks also are not super great offensively, especially with Julius Randle. He's had a rough start to the season shooting. So yeah, I'm going to take the Bucks over the Knicks. I don't think that surprises anybody. This is the interesting one. I think this is the most fun game of these 4. We have the number 2 ranked Pacers versus the number 3 Celtics. That's on Monday. I'm going to go with the Pacers. the game is in Indiana. Okay, so it's not like, what are you doing? I'm gonna take the Pacers to beat the Celtics. This game is in Indiana because they're the number 2 seed. Indiana currently owns the best offense in the NBA. Pacers may not make the playoffs, so this might be Indiana, like the Pacers fan base. This might be their one shot this year for a playoff type game. Kristaps right now is a calf injury, might not be back in time for the game on Monday. I think he's going to be reevaluated this weekend if I remember what I read correctly. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Pacers here because one, I'm on the Pacers bandwagon now. Two, they may not get a playoff game this year, so this might be that fan base's one chance at a playoff type game. And then it's in Indiana, plus the Kristaps thing. So I'll go Pacers. That leaves us with some semifinal matchups. So semifinal matchup 1, based on my previous picks, would be the Suns versus the Kings. Again, this game, the Kings would be higher seed. This game would be, these semifinal games are in Las Vegas. So it's a neutral site. Phoenix Kings. I like the Kings. Again, no Bradley Beal, and it feels like the Sacramento Kings are kind of built for these like single elimination type of tournament games. Given how they're fast paced, their offense. Fox being at least last year was the most clutch NBA player in the NBA. I like the Kings to beat the Suns to get to the in-season tournament final. Next up is the East. You got number 2 Pacers, number 1 Bucks. Again, neutral site in Las Vegas. I'm fully on board the Pacers bandwagon, and I truly want a Kings Pacers in season tournament finals. To me as a basketball fan, that's the most fun scenario. So I'm gonna pick the Pacers over the Bucks. Reasons, just because I want it. Okay, that's gonna be my reasoning for this. Let's just say the Pacers have a ridiculous shooting night. They have 8 guys scoring double figures. Tyrese Halliburton has 19 assists. The Milwaukee's defense, it's gotten better, but maybe they just get run over by this offensive juggernaut that's Indiana. So, East, I like the Pacers in the in-season tournament. Finals, again, this is a dream. To me, this is a dream scenario for basketball, like offensive basketball junkies. This is what I want to see. I think it would be so fun. Kings Pacers. This would be the number 1 offense from last year versus the number 1 offense from this year. Neutral site in Vegas. Everyone's having fun. I'd probably take the Kings in that matchup. So let's just crown the Sacramento Kings in season champs. Let's do it. Why not? Let's go. Pacers runner up. All right, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. I'll be back. That's it for today's episode. I'll be back. In the next couple weeks, at the very least. There'll be a new episode. If you missed my little programming announcement off the top, I'm gonna start releasing episodes a little bit quicker. But they're not gonna be 3-4 segment things. They're just gonna be shorter single segment episodes, just so I can get stuff out faster. I'll still aim to at the very least have something once every 2 weeks. But there may be things that end up populating on your feed a little bit quicker than that. As I get things recorded and out. So yeah. Till next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow on all the platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, whatever. And thanks you guys for listening. See you in the next one.